This week, we're excited to welcome comedian and voice actor Tom Sawyer.
To me, if society's putting up a line in the sand, then your job is to figure out a way to get to that line without crossing it. That's the challenge of comedy. To me, it's just another challenge. If you're not up for the challenge, old man, get out of the way and let the young guys, because they'll figure it out. They have figured it out. A number of them have.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're over there going, "Oh, woke people are giving me a hard time. They're trying to cancel me. Boo-hoo." It's pathetic.
This is Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. I'm Bridget Phetasy, and you are welcome. You know the drill. Please subscribe, rate, comment, share, reach out, tell your friends, send smoke signals, whatever. We love your feedback and we want to hear from you. If you like our work and want to support us, the best way to do that is join Phetasy.com. You'll get access to behind-the-scenes content, outtakes, discounts on merch, and the ability to submit questions for some of our upcoming guests. Support your favorite scrappy little internet heroes at Phetasy.com. Walk-Ins Welcome is brought to you by Patriot Gold. Call 888-614-9238 for a free investor guide today. All righty. I'm with Tom Sawyer, everybody. Welcome to Walk-Ins Welcome.
Hi.
Hi. Such a pleasure to have you. I love talking to people about comedy. I could do it all day long.
Well, that's what I did all day long for 30 years and then still some.
So tell us who you are just briefly. You are the owner of the Cobb's Comedy Club, correct?
Yeah. Cobb's Comedy Club in San Francisco is owner and producer for 30 years. Owners for 17 years, producer for all 30 years. Sold it to Live Nation, sold Cobb's to Live Nation, and worked for them for 7 years. And then corporate America and me wasn't a good fit. So then I got out of that, and now I'm in a voiceover actor, professional voiceover actor with representation in LA and San Francisco. And I get to make the wacky voices I did when I started doing stand-up. That's how I got into this, all of this business end of it. I went to San Francisco to become a stand-up comic in 1982.
Wow. That's what my first question was your desire to be a stand-up comic, and did you continue to do that, or did you just go into being more on the owner side of things?
I always kind of kept my foot in the door of being creative. There was an improv group at Cobb's for about 3 or 4 years called the Riffingtons, and that actually included one of the producers of San Francisco Sketch Fest and a couple other local players. And it was a regular thing at Cobb's that we would do on Monday nights for about half an hour every Monday. And I started out doing improv and then wanted to get into stand-up, and then moved to San Francisco to do that. And all the other clubs, the Punchline, and then there was the classic Holy City Zoo. The other cafe was another club in San Francisco. They were all packed except for this little sad club, Cobb's Pub, who was doing comedy. And, these guys would have the audience that all the other clubs would end up with at the end of the night. At the beginning of the night, we'd have like 20 people, and everybody was trying to get into the clubs that had packed audiences, and only to perform in front of tired audiences at the end of the night. Well, right. I liked performing in front of an audience, a small audience, but at least an awake audience. So me and a handful of other comics, made our way to Cobb's because we could get more stage time. In fact, you had that kind of stage time where you had to wait for another comic to show up to kind of tag you out. Even if you ran out of material like 10 minutes ago, you'd be on stage until somebody showed up to get you off stage.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And that happened more than once to many people. So it was quite the adventure. And what I kept doing, what I kept seeing was the shows weren't going well. Their booked shows were doing horribly, and eventually, I just kept telling the owner I could do a better job. Here's what I would do differently. Here's why this show's going to fail. And he said, "Okay, I'm firing the producer, and I'm giving you the job." And I'd never booked a comedy club before. I just
Wow.
talked a good game, and but within a year, we went from being at 20% capacity to about 85% capacity, 7 days a week.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's not an easy feat to do. And what do you attribute it? Like, what changes did you make? How does one go about being a successful booker at a comedy club? What's the secret sauce?
Well, I'm not greedy. That was probably the biggest thing. One is I really loved stand-up and appreciated good stand-up. I would be the first to admit that I sucked as a stand-up comedian, which is one of the reasons why I never moved on and became a really good stand-up, was because I wasn't a really good stand-up. I have no illusions about where I was and what I did wrong, and understanding what you do wrong helps you pass that advice to younger comics.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing. So I understood what everybody was going through on stage. I had experienced, having a great set, bombing, hecklers. I understood it, unlike other bookers. The other thing was I paid really well. We paid out 80% of the door proceeds went to comedians.
Mm-hmm.
That included their travel, their expenses, but 80% of the door went to the acts. The opening acts were paid on a percentage, so everybody could really benefit. It was a great week. The MC would make more money than the featured act would make at my rival clubs,
right?
And headliners were making more money at Cobb's than they were making at the Punchline, which was double the size, because we were 110 seats.
Right.
But we're 110 seats, yet we have Richard Lewis, Jerry Seinfeld, Bob Saget. We have Rita Rudner, all these amazing comedians playing the club week after week because we paid.
Right.
That's the secret sauce is, if you're a booker, don't be greedy. And I think unfortunately in this country, greed is the champion. And, I was always like, the headliners always made more money than I did. Sometimes the feature act would make more money than I did. I got 20% of the door. That's what I lived off of. I didn't get a guaranteed salary. My salary was at the whim of who showed up.
Right.
So I wanted the best to show up so I could make money too. So that was the whole thing. Everybody had a reason to try harder, to get to promote the show more, because they would get more money. And for that reason, I would have a comic call, "Hey, I'm going to be doing Letterman in a month and a half. Do you have a spot available?" And I'd move some stuff around and we'd get him into the club. We'd get a plug, then that turned into a Carson plug, a Tonight Show plug, and we'd get so many national plugs. That's how the club got known nationally.
Right.
Because everybody wanted to plug their show, because that meant more dollars for them. If they were a packed week, they could make crazy money.
Right. So that's not greed.
Well, I think it's, I wouldn't say it's greed. I would say it's like, it's everybody looking out for, their own best interests in a way, but in a way that benefits everybody.
Everyone.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that the win-win-win situations are always the best. It's usually when I guess, agree. I've been in a lot of really interesting hippie situations, particularly in the weed industry, where they talk about the greed of capitalism, but it's the kind of the most shady, underhanded, duplicitous greed that ends up occurring in these weird ways, where I would be sitting there like, okay, you guys aren't necessarily any better in this situation.
Well, like everything else, there's healthy greed, and there's toxic greed.
Mm-hmm.
So healthy greed is like when you're doing it for the benefit of of the group. And it's not I don't know if it's greed is the right word,
Right.
because to me it's like I never felt greedy ever. I always felt like I was, you know, I always felt like that my goal was simply to make Cobb's the best comedy club in the country, period. I was always driven by being considered the number one club in the country as far as like talent and show, especially, when you're up against LA and New York, places where talent lives there. I mean, massive talent lives there because of movies and television. Still our reputation was, if you're playing San Francisco, you got to play Cobb's because that's the cool place. That's where Jim Carrey plays. That's where Bill Maher plays. That's where Ellen DeGeneres started. Patton Oswalt started. All these
Was
great.
Robin Williams up there?
Robin played about a month out of every year at Cobb's for a good 25 years.
Wow.
Month of shows, just dropping in or doing announced shows later on. He would do more announced shows, but
Wow.
he would drop in unexpected. Like I said, about 30 days out of the year, we'd have them.
Yeah, it's what I hear when you talk about this is this desire to kind of grow the pot for everyone. I think that's so inspiring for everybody to work towards something better, because if everybody's invested in it, it makes you want to show up and do your best. And when I was waiting tables, the company that I worked for, which was very rare in the industry that I worked in, which is, you get $2.89 an hour where I was, and it was just horrific. There was a company that would allow you to get, it was called ESOP, and it was employee stock owned, and people had been there for ever because they had stock in the restaurant. And they could cash out and actually have some semblance of a retirement, which you usually never have when you're waiting tables. And it really showed me how much that changes the entire vibe of a place and how much pride people took in their work and kind of self-corrected and corrected one another when they had a vested interest in the organization they work for succeed, as opposed to other restaurants where the owner was having us clean for $2.89 an hour instead of hiring a proper cleaning crew because he could, even though it was illegal.
Well, we had a similar thing with Cobb's. It wasn't just with the comics. It was with my staff as well. I hated hiring new people. So to me, there was a minimum wage in San Francisco, regardless of whether you were a waitress or a waiter, and we would pay like $4 or $5 over that. And on top of that, we had a much tighter staff where another club would have, 5 waitresses for the amount of people. We'd have 3, and not because we wanted them to work harder, because the tips were better. And they were like, please don't hire anymore. We're doing great.
Yeah.
And they'd get the drinks out and then some, and the bartenders would be around forever. That was the thing, is we had such a low turnover. We had people that would, when they finally moved on to the career that they went to college for, they would be apologizing. And I'm going, no, this is the job that you needed to have to get through college and pay your tuition. And now you're moving on to what you're supposed to be moving on to. Don't apologize. It's okay. But seriously, our turnover was, people would stay for 3 or 4 years. And it was a family, good, bad. That's how families work, but the bottom line was we knew each other, we had each other's backs. And if you didn't carry the load, then everybody was like, then people would be like, hey, you really need to step up, and it wouldn't be me saying that. It'd be another worker to another worker, because it was a team,
Yeah.
So it was a really great environment. We had parties all the time. We would have a Halloween party and a Christmas party every year. They were notoriously famous for, and jammed and, invite people from other clubs. And it wasn't just, it was like everybody's included, we're all a big family. And that was the idea was, you're all welcome. This is our party every year. And we'd have impromptu parties. It was a really great place to hang out. We'd have poker games at the end of the evening. It was just it was literally a club,
Yeah.
like Spanky and our gang, Little Rascals club, it was that vibe. And that's what it was for the comics. That's what it was for even for the audience. Sometimes people were, at a first name basis. Our customers were a first name basis, and a lot of that was trust too. I would have a certain kind of comic that we'd book, and I'd go to people, "Oh, I didn't know you were a fan of so and so," and they go, "No, I never heard of this guy. We just trust you." And
Yeah.
that's why we were packed almost every night, because people trusted us.
That's also like the sweet spot, I feel like, for an honest room. Like that size room keeps you so honest as a comedian because you can't, when it's bigger, you can't really bomb, and you're generally at the level where you're not really going to. If you're in the 200 range, it happens, but it's not. I feel like those rooms are less, but those little ones like the OR at the Comedy Store, they keep you honest in a way. You can't really. You have to be present with the audience.
Well, it's not a sea of faces. You can see
Yeah.
everybody looking at you. You can see their expressions. You can see when you're losing them. You can see when I mean, I think it's good and bad. I think there are comics out there that are obsess on that one person that isn't digging them, and and that drives me crazy because I'm always like, you always show that, the comics always show that unstable family background they came from, where they focus on that one dude who's just gone, instead of the audience that's exploding with laughter. It's that one person that's like this, that they're just constantly glaring back at.
Yeah.
So, but I don't. That the newest incarnation of Cobb's, the last one, because we kept growing every time we moved, and we moved a couple times, is 400 seats, and that's my least favorite room. That was my least favorite room. I thought in some ways it would be better, and it didn't turn out that way. And it turned out that unlike the other two rooms, I decided to start booking comics I really didn't like, that I wasn't really a fan of, and that kind of sucked.
And that's just because they can fill the rooms. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the pressure with a big room like that, is you just.
Oh, there's so much pressure.
Yeah. And it's not easy night after night to fill 400 seats.
Oh, it was weird because going backwards, there's a documentary about Cobb's called The Comedy Club. It's about me and Cobb's. It's mainly about the making or the building of the latest version of Cobb's. So anybody that wants to, start their own comedy club, this is a good movie to check out. Or at least you can also see, like, a lot of comics, a lot of young comics that help build the club actually, put their, backs into it, so to speak. And Bob Saget opened the room, and he's in it, and Dana Carvey and Paula Poundstone and, George Wallace, Bill Maher, a lot of great people are in the movie. And I was so excited about this room because I thought, oh man, I could do so many things. I can bring so many people in. And then the reality of it was, I have to stop booking people I don't like, people that I think aren't very good. And I have to take my comedy snobbishness and put it over here and go, oh, that's not going to be a useful tool anymore. So yeah. And it was tough.
Guess I'm going to have to book some TikTok stars.
Yeah. And worse, it was like, there are some people that are just super popular that I really, really didn't like.
Yeah.
And then there are some people that I probably would have never got to book if I hadn't had that room, and I was lucky to have those.
If you're a longtime listener, my husband has been drinking AG1 for about 2 years now. When Jaron started drinking AG1 daily, he just noticed immediately a difference in his energy level throughout the day. He felt like it was more sustained. He didn't have these dips. He knew that it was one thing he could do for himself. He loves that every scoop includes prebiotics, probiotics, digestive enzymes for gut support, magnesium, and B vitamins for energy support, adaptogens to balance his body's stress levels, vitamin C and zinc to help with the immune health. We recommend AG1 to all of our family and friends because it's formulated based on the latest science and maintains very high quality standards. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/WIW. That's drinkag1.com/WIW. Check it out. Is one of your goals for the new year to learn a new language? If you're like me, it's often on your list of things to do. This year, you can start speaking a new language with Babbel. Why Babbel? Because it works. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are designed by over 150 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. It's designed by real people for real conversations. Babbel's convenient courses have helped me learn real-life conversation skills. I'm in Texas, and there's so much Spanish speaking all around me. I have no excuse to not use my conversation skills other than feeling insecure or embarrassed. But because I can practice with Babbel in real-world situations, I feel more confident using it out in the real world. Here's a special limited-time deal for our listeners to get you started right now. Get 55% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/WIW. Get 55% off at babbel.com/WIW, spelled BABBEL.com/WIW. Rules and restrictions may apply. Why do you think that when you said earlier that you knew you couldn't kind of hack it in comedy, what was it that you don't think that with just enough persistence? I guess this is a question I always have with comedians because I've seen comedians. This recently happened to me where I saw a comedian I hadn't seen in a long time, and I was like, "Oh, I thought you were dead." I didn't even know that they were alive anymore. But I think we started around the same time. I've taken years off now. I had a baby and was convinced myself that I didn't belong on the stage and want to do comedy anymore, which I'm now facing as a lie because I'm, scared. But how do you know? At what point do you call it as a comedian?
I had to, I've always been kind of honest with myself, and especially, because I'm honest with comics as far as their, career. And I've had a lot of heart-to-hearts with a lot of comics over the years about different things in their shows and their careers. And I had to have the same heart-to-heart with myself. If I'm being honest with other people and kind of being a coach / producer and stuff like that, I've got to use that same I am myself. And I just felt like, I don't know if you're a baseball fan, but I felt like I was a career 212 hitter. And, I got into the show a couple times, but for the most part, I'm a better manager than I am a player. And I just felt like, one is, and this is what I tell all comics, is be honest and be true to who you are. The big mistake I made when I came into the San Francisco scene was I tried to fit in. I tried to, I went to a bunch of shows, saw the writing on the wall, and threw out a bunch of stuff that I was doing that was more me, and started doing stuff I thought would make me fit in, would make the other comics respect me. And the truth is, it's the other way around, but and that's not completely true either, because I was another comic. I don't know if you know Rob Becker, who did the show Defending the Caveman, which still is has the record on Broadway for the longest running one-man show in Broadway history. But he actually was true to who he was and didn't conform to what was going on in San Francisco for the most part, which was very esoteric comedy. And he was kind of an outcast. But he never went, okay, well, heck with it, I'm going to start doing songs and doing weird impersonations and esoteric humor that half the audience isn't going to get. He just stuck to
Right.
his guns, and then eventually, got interested in talking about the male and female relationships and personalities and stuff like that, and then then it turned into defending the caveman. But the thing is, he stayed on his path.
Right.
He didn't listen to other people. He stayed true to who he is. And that's what I tell people: be yourself. Nobody can take that from you.
Yeah.
If you're doing generic material, even if you're a big comedy act, and you go, oh, somebody's stealing from me or whatever, it's mainly because you're not really being true to yourself. Nobody can really steal your experience. They can steal your joke about a thought you might have that comes from a generic kind of place. That's one of those ones where, well, anybody could have thought of that bit, and don't blame the comedian for taking your Star Trek, the guy in the red suit always gets killed at the beginning of every episode tired bit, that's when everybody can think of something that you actually experienced, and find the humor that you have and put it to that incident. Be true to who you are. That's the only thing and the most important thing for comics to learn and to move forward, to become big. The people that are really truly special are who they are off stage,
right,
on stage. Bill Burr is the same guy.
Yeah, the exact same guy.
Yeah. And so is Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And so is, Bill Maher. Like him or love him. You hate him or love him, it doesn't matter. If you think Bill Maher's an asshole on his show, don't worry about it. He's an asshole off stage. Trust me. So that's Bill. Good, bad, or indifferent. That's who he is.
Yeah. And so how else do you know? I was just back in LA. I'm in Austin now. I was just back in LA and talking to a bunch of female comedians who I've known for over a decade at this point. And one of my friends was like, I want to quit and I don't know how, but I want to get out. And I'm in an abusive relationship. I mean, a lot of us are, there is something to that, but I keep returning to, how do you know if it's time to quit, or is it just time to double down and persist? There's a lot of, I'm grateful I kind of stumbled into, not stumbled, but I ended up falling in love. I got married. I got very accidentally lucky and pregnant late in life. But I look at a lot of my friends, and you have to sacrifice so much to really grind in this industry. And at what point do you say, this isn't going to happen? Especially when you're a woman and it's like, those are your kind of prime childbearing years, and you're just at these clubs. I don't know. It's so tricky for me to look at it from this perspective as a 45-year-old, as opposed to, 10, 15 years ago. Well, I would say the one thing I would say is understanding that just because you're on the right road doesn't mean you're on the right path. There are paths off the road that we can take. Some people, there's a number of people that I've had play Cobbs over the years, and they've become famous writers. Right. They become famous. Kevin Rooney was one of my favorite comedians, has passed away recently, and he made all of his money writing, and had a great career being a writer, a head writer on the Dennis Miller Show, on Real Time with Bill Maher, on the Golden Girls. He made a ton of money. He was one of the best stand-ups I've ever met. One of the funniest people I've ever met. So doesn't necessarily mean that because you are super funny doesn't translate to the audience, believing that you're super funny. And but you might be on the right path as far as being writer, director,
getting into the business in another way, shape, or form that maybe suits your lifestyle a little bit better. People aren't, stand-up comedy is kind of a kind of a dysfunctional art form in itself,
It
because
is.
you're on a stage alone looking for the acceptance of strangers.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you were on a couch telling this to a guy that you're paying $200 an hour to talk to, it sounds like you got a problem.
Yeah.
And so
And it's late nights and lots of
late.
travel and alone in hotel rooms, and
Bad things can happen from from all those things happening.
Yeah.
And
a lot of addiction.
Yeah.
My friend who's a comedian calls it a mental illness factory, and he's not completely. Dave Yates always says that. He's like, comedy is a mental illness factory, and it truly is.
Well, there's a lot of narcissism. There's a lot of, and even from my standpoint, I mean, as a club owner, I what kind of relationships am I going to find when I go to a woman and go, "Hey, want to date me? I'm not available on the weekends ever,
or at night ever,
or at night, except for 2 nights a week, Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Yeah, so
we can have a lot of brunches.
So I'm going to attract only the best and brightest. I mean, it's a dysfunctional lifestyle, and some people get out of it because of that reason, or they get out of it because they wake up one day and they go, you know what, it's I'm eking out a decent living, but I'm not rocking it. So maybe there's something else for me. Maybe that time where I, passed up a writing gig, I'm going to reach out to that person and find out if it's still there, or, let them know that I'm interested. And, if that comes up, let my agent know that I'm interested, if a writing gig comes up, or take classes in writing to see if, how to interpret what you're saying to paper. But realize that it's, if you're a genuinely funny person, it's not, you don't have to go on stage to release that talent, to release that creative side on you. You can do it through writing, or you can do it through other mediums, even working with other comics and writing for them too,
Yeah. What's the compulsion to get on stage?
The adrenaline.
Yeah,
it's a drug.
It is.
It's a drug.
Oh, the heart pounding adrenaline.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you rock it, there isn't anything better.
And there's nothing worse than when you bomb either, though.
No, that's the thing that civilians don't understand, is that you're locked in. If they say you have to do 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes or a half an hour or an hour, you have to do that time. You can't just go, hey, after 15 minutes, hey, this isn't going well, see you later. I know I'm the last act, I'm supposed to do another 45 minutes, but I'm out. Hate me and I don't like you. I'm out.
Yeah,
you can't
it's
do
like
that.
being strapped into a rocket ship.
Yeah, you're going down you're the captain, you're going down with the ship, so it's terrifying. I mean, I saw Kevin Meaney one time, and this is when Kevin Meaney was big, and I saw him in front of an audience, the last guy of the last act of a show that was really a good show, and the audience was amazing. And then Kevin goes up, and they're just not digging it. They're not getting it. Kevin Meaney, for those of you, check him out on YouTube if you haven't seen him. He has an act,
right?
And there isn't no variations from it. If the audience isn't digging it in the first 10 minutes, they're not going to dig it at any other time. They're not going to change it over. It's a style. He's going to do it sort of like Gilbert Gottfried, or if you're not digging that voice, it's not going to get any better. It's over for you. You might as well pack it up and go home, because that guy's going to be on stage the whole time, and it's going to be a nightmare for you. But he was bombing and had to stay there. And it was funny for the other comics, because we were watching him laughing our asses off, because he would just kept looking at us going, we know, dude, we've all been there.
That's the other weird thing, is how something can work, 9 times in front of an audience, and then you get in front of an audience, and
how about you got on a HBO special? You're doing an hour HBO special because of this material, and then you go in front of another audience, And they even tell this guy's on an hour HBO special, and then you go on and you bomb.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's so weird. It's very strange. And I'm definitely not one to blame an audience. I hate it when comedians start like taking it out on their audience. But I understand why it happens, because when you have stuff that hits every single 9 times out of 10 and then it's just not hitting, the chances are it's the audience.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not, or
We had
something's just off, or they're tired, but it is a bizarre phenomenon that I've seen with the best comedians in the world, where stuff that has worked a million times just doesn't work. And it's very disorienting, you know. It's you suddenly are like, wait, that gets a laugh everywhere.
We had this show one time. This is one of my favorite bombing stories, because the bill from heaven. It was Paula Poundstone and Kevin Nealon co-headlining with Rob Becker as the opening act. 3 acts that are just like killing machines. And Rob bombs, which I've never seen Rob bomb. Kevin is bombed so hard he is physically shaken when he gets off the stage. I mean, he is just I honestly just like like in the corner, like, you know, that person on the side of the road and that just out of the car in a traffic accident.
Yeah.
You know, it's got their hand on their head and they're just like physically, they're fine, but they're just, yeah, that's what Kevin looked like. Yeah. And then Paula Poundstone goes on and realizes, you know, screw these people, you know, and she is just torturing them. And finally she starts getting them to laugh. Like in the last half hour, they're laughing because she's just torturing them and humiliating them, like just nonstop. And and the staff and the other comics are just laughing uproariously, and they finally realize that they suck.
Yeah.
That they're the problem, not the rest of the comics. But that was just a wonderful show, because it was made wonderful because Paula basically just went, okay, it's me against you now. We've established that you suck, and I'm going to let you know that you suck. And it's sort of the same way. I don't know if you've seen that famous Bill Burr set where he's in Philadelphia and he tortures the audience for 10 minutes, telling them how much their city sucks, how much Philadelphia just blows. You have a statue of Rocky, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah,
he's amazing.
And if you folks haven't seen that, you really need to go to YouTube. And it's one of the funniest 10 minutes where he counts actually down the minutes while just annihilating the audience, where they're just screaming obscenities at him.
That is amazing. And he's like such a Red Sox fan too, of course. It's there's so many. I still don't know if you've answered my question of like, how many years in before you call it, or
it's
how many years
it's up to the person.
Yeah. How many years did you do comedy before you realized, you know, this, I'm not going to be a brilliant comedian?
It wasn't too long after I got the booking job at Cobb's that I kind of stopped. One is I couldn't travel anymore, so that was out. So in a weird way, it kind of saved me. I had a save face excuse to bow out. Oh, I can't possibly go on the road anymore because I'm doing this, so I better just bow out. The truth is, I was really embarrassed by a lot of the stuff that I did. You know, and I still have comics that bust my balls about some of the material I had back then, and I have to just go, yeah, that sucked. But the bottom line is, you've got to be truthful to yourself. You get to a certain point where I'd say, if it isn't happening for you, where you're not headlining and making a living out of this, going in, 5 or 6 or 7 years tops, then you really need to go. You need to get out, or at least, do it as a hobby. You perform at open mics once in a while or whatever, just because you have that urge. But if you've been doing it for 7 years and you haven't moved past being an MC, you really need to go.
Yeah.
Because it's just you're that, you don't want to be that sad person, the older guy that just won't let it go. And everybody's going behind your back.
Yeah.
And it's better to own your shortcomings and bow out gracefully. it happens or it doesn't happen. Some people, look, it's really tough it's really, really tough when you really have talent and you're really funny and it's just not happening. Then, I've known comics. There's like 5 comics that I've known in my life that seriously should have been gigantic. I mean, like so funny that you're crying laughing. These people also had the like superhero, X-Men mutant power of avoiding success.
Yeah.
There's one guy you could almost count on when he was in front of people to audition in front of the Letterman people or the Tonight Show people. He would bomb. This guy was a killing machine, but he would always I'm going to do new material because I'm tired of the old stuff, and they're probably tired. They haven't seen you do the old material.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do the stuff that kills. What are you, insane?
Yeah.
They open up with a joke. What? You never do jokes. Are you nuts? They just find a reason to implode their careers. And one guy decided, like, he's on the verge of getting this massive writing job in LA, decides to quit and go on the road and become like Jack Kerouac. Because he's a big writing fan. He goes, oh, dude, that's not you being like adventurous. It's you like just running away from success.
Yeah.
Some people just are terrified of success.
Yeah.
They'll do anything to sabotage it. But for the most part, everybody gets in because they want to succeed. It's just at some point, just let it go or find another path. But I'm not going to be the one to, to tell people that. Well, I have been.
I feel like you have been.
I've been there. I've been there.
Yeah. I mean, I would want an honest person to tell me that at a certain point, like you.
Yeah.
Especially somebody who sees comics every single night, 5 to 6 nights a week, talk about doing your 10,000 hours. You've seen open mics, you've seen people at all different phases of their career, you've seen people start and blow up. I would want someone with that perspective to say, hey, you might, I think like the point I'm at returning is I don't want to be a road comic. I would like to be a local comic. I know that about myself. I have a baby. She's a priority. A young child. I'm married. I value my time with my husband and our relationship. And I would like to be a local comic who can get up and still work on my material. But I know that I'm not expecting to be a huge star, and sell out arenas or sell out even theaters. I'm happy to be like a comedy hobbyist at this point.
Well, there's also, that rare person that finds the light bulb goes on, they finally figure it out. The thing that they do best, and then they were discovered. I mean, Lewis Black was discovered at like 55 or something.
Yeah.
So it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's just, just have to be realistic with what you're doing and what your career is. And it's really hard for anybody, no matter what you do, no matter where you are in life, no matter what job you have, to be truly honest with, where you are in your life and what your goals are. And, it's like, nobody wants to be the night manager at 7-Eleven, but somebody's doing that job, it wasn't their dream,
Yeah.
Yeah. So
many of you know we love the Jordan Harbinger Show here, which is a podcast you really should be listening to, particularly if you like guests of all walks of life coming on and talking about fascinating different topics every week, which I know you do if you listen to this show. Jordan's always focused on pulling useful, practical insights out of his brilliant guests. We're not talking about pop psychology or wishy-washy self-help stuff here. The episodes are loaded with bits of wisdom that you can use to legitimately change your mind and improve your life right away. He's had on Florence Williams talking about the science of heartbreak. And then he also had on Mitch Lowe. He's a co-founding executive of Netflix, the former CEO of MoviePass, the former president of Redbox. He comes on to talk about the lessons in disruption. We really enjoy this show, and we think you will as well. Search for The Jordan Harbinger Show. That's HARB as in boy, IN as in Nancy, GER on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Walk-ins Welcome is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Hey listeners, whether you love true crime or comedies, celebrity interviews, news, or even motivational speakers, you call the shots on what's in your podcast queue, right? And guess what? Now you can call the shots on your auto insurance too. Enter the Name Your Price tool from Progressive. The Name Your Price tool puts you in charge of your auto insurance by working just the way it sounds. You tell Progressive how much you want to pay for car insurance, then they'll show you a variety of coverages that fit within your budget, giving you options. Now that's something you'll want to press play on. It's easy to start a quote and you'll be able to choose the best option for you, fast. It's just one of the many ways you can save with Progressive Insurance. Quote today at Progressive.com to try the Name Your Price tool for yourself and join the over 28 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. What is your perspective on, again, as someone who's got such a long history in this industry, what's your perspective on women in comedy? You know, what is your honest view of, is it the same? Is it?
I think that well, first of all, I think it's the same.
Yeah.
I don't think there's I think there's some advantages. I think there's some disadvantages, but I think there's that way for any group. I mean, I had there was a little controversy in the Bay Area in the 90s because, you know, as a African American comedian who complained about me not booking him anymore, and then you know, other African American comics complained at how hard it was to get on Cobb's, on the stage at Cobb's, and it you know, and both myself and Jeff Wills, who was booking the Punchline at the time, you know, were both you know, had their people pointing fingers at, because we were the two big clubs in the area,
right?
And Jeff and Live Nation, or at the time I think it was Clear Channel, decided to let it, just ignore it to death, and I went out and I defended myself and my decisions. And also people had a better idea of what went on. I mean, we had, you know, on our showcase nights at Cobb's, people would call in at 3:00. If they wanted to get on, they would call at 3:00 the day of the show, and the show would be filled up within 5 minutes.
Right.
And it would be mostly filled up with, because it was called the All Professional Comedy Showcase. So it was filled up with mostly professional, with 95% professional comedians. And I would always let in one or two new people on a night. And that was once a week. So you had to call up exactly at 3:00. It would be filled up within less than 5 minutes. And because it was me basically going, can't do it tonight, try it again next week.
Yeah.
You know, try again next week, try again next week. And, you know, this one comic, African-American comic called in, you know, into a radio show that I was doing, you know, and saying, you know, I tried for 2 months to get on your show, and I couldn't get on. You wouldn't let me on. And then another comic who was on the same radio show as I was said, I did it for a year, dude. I'm a white guy. I tried getting on there for a year, and I finally got on. And everybody said, that's how it works. And all the people that, you know, all the comics I was going to open mics with, that's how it works. You know, unless somebody goes to bat for you, and everybody was afraid to go to bat for you, because I would tell comics, hey, you know, you sure this guy is good? Because if, you know, if he's not, you know, you recommend somebody else down the road, I'm going to remember this one is one you recommended. So people would be a little hesitant about recommending somebody that they weren't really sure that this person was really good. So it was a tough club to get into.
Yeah. I mean, that's like Comedy Store. People put their name in the potluck on, you know, for a year and a half, I've heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
For 3 minutes of time.
Yep. You know, our stage, you get at least at 5 minutes. And if you did good, you'd get on again, you know, within a month, you know, but if you didn't do good, which is what I always tell people, okay, if you're ready to go on, you know, just remember, you know, screw this one up, and it's going to be a while before you know, get another spot here.
Yeah.
So, you know, or people would ask me, what do I do? You just keep calling. That's how you do. Eventually I'm going to get tired of saying no, and I'm going to let you go on.
Yeah.
You know, that's how it works. I want to see your how dedicated you are to getting on stage here. This is how it works. There's no special treatment. The only special treatment is if you got a half a dozen comedians who work here saying, you got to have this guy, then I'm going to listen.
Right.
And that's how I got a lot of people. I mean, I got Jim Carrey because Rick Overton said to me, you got to see this guy. And then I contacted his manager, who was kind of a nobody at the time, Jimmy Miller, the other Miller's brother, the comedian. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Saturday Night Live, the other Miller.
Dennis Miller.
Dennis Miller, right. Thank you. So I called him up and he sent me a tape and I went, I got to have this guy.
Yeah.
And then he played and destroyed and
bonkers.
I knew, it was bonkers. And we had him for a month of the year, every year for about 5 years.
Wow.
And yeah.
I think too about just like the self-destructiveness that comes with success. You were talking about this and being almost allergic to it. And I had a friend, I don't know if you ever met him, Eric Myers. He passed away, I think, over the pandemic, but the guy killed. Every time I saw him perform, people were literally falling out of their chair. I thought it was like something you saw in movies that people laughed so hard they fell out of chairs, and they would just routinely fall out of their chair laughing at this guy. He was so brilliant on stage and so tortured, just so tortured. One of my favorites. And he was such a mentor to me when I was first starting out in LA. He was like, get up and bomb until you're comfortable with bombing. That was his advice to me. Get on stage, go to open mics, bomb until it doesn't freak you out, and then keep bombing.
That's a good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many of those people who are just so intent on self-destruction, and there's nothing you can do. There's absolutely nothing you can do because we're all on our own path, and it's up to us to change it or to move the needle and figure out how to do that. And there's nothing. I mean, I in the early days, I thought, well, I know everything. Look at all my successes that, all the comics that I helped become successful and great. And then, thought I could just do that with anybody. And then there was a couple people I tried and it wouldn't work. And it's like, I just realized that, first of all, those other people that you think you helped, well, they probably would have got there, maybe they wouldn't have got there sooner. Maybe you did do something that helped, but for the most part, it's them. Even if you give advice, it's up to them to take the advice.
Yeah.
It's really easy to blow somebody off. You don't know what you're talking about, old man. Whatever you want to do, whatever cliche thing you want to do to blow off somebody that's giving you really rock solid advice. It's up to you to realize that's good advice, and it's up to you to put that into action. So
yeah, it does seem like even thinking about I guess my question about women, I really do think that it's a meritocracy. This is one of the things I love about comedy, is that you're funny or you're not. There's no cheating that. It's not something that you can work your way, other than stealing jokes blatantly from people. You really can't cheat your way into being a successful comedian.
Yeah, I would say probably if I was to say anything, well, no, I can't even say that. I just thought of a reason to knock that off, what I was about to say. I think success is something that, it's you click with a group, especially nowadays too, where you have comics that are performing to very select groups of people, whether it's, somebody who have the same heritage of them, or the same sexuality as they are, or,
right.
whatever it is. And it's not for you, I mean, I've had a number of people that performed at Cobb's even that I wanted to go to the audience. I go, please explain to me how that's funny. That joke that you just heard, that you just laughed hysterically at, please explain to me, because I don't get it.
Yeah.
I really don't get it. I'm looking at you thinking you've got 3 heads and you're having the time of your life, and I don't understand. And I would like to understand, but I don't. So comedy is subjective.
Yeah.
I had one time where this woman and her son came out of Cobb's. They just were livid, and they had just seen they were leaving in the middle of Brian Regan's show, and they opened up the doors to come out and complain to us about how horrible the show is, and there is a gigantic wave of laughter literally pushing them out the door as they open the door. It's like this thunderous of laughter, and they're going, "This is the worst show I've ever," and blah blah blah. And they're like berating us, like, are you paying attention to what you were the room?
Yeah.
It's all subjective.
Do you ever think? Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, it's okay.
I was just going to ask, do you ever think that there's like such thing as too soon?
Yeah. There's such this, it's like there's every, there's too soon in music. There's too soon in acting and movies and television. There's too soon in everything. It's also like whether you're equipped to take in success. Some people just fold up like a circus tent, once they have it, and then they disappear, I mean, they through their misdeeds or just their inability to handle success. Sam Kinison was destined to become gigantic. They stopped a movie that he was doing. He was booked. They wrote a script around him. He was doing a film, and they had director, writer, everything was done, and they stopped production on this whole thing. Probably were about 4 or 5 million already into the production that hadn't started shooting yet, and it was just about to, and they pulled the plug on it because they knew this guy was trouble. And they said, let's nip it in the bud now because it's only going to get worse.
Right.
So, and he was never offered another starring role in another movie ever again.
Wow.
And he literally sentenced himself to just club gigs and theater appearances after that, until he passed.
Yeah.
Because he just destroyed his movie career, his television career, because he was just too self-destructive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I still feel like, I'm sure when you started, it still feels to me like there are more men than women in comedy, just in general.
Absolutely.
And I think it is what's your opinion on why that is?
Because women are healthier than men.
That's the best actual reason I've ever heard.
Yeah, I think wanting to be a comic is fucked up. I think it's, if I had a son, I would probably, if they wanted to do that, I wouldn't try to discourage them, overtly, but I'd probably be covertly trying to discourage them, but I just think it's not the healthiest lifestyle. And I don't think it's a healthy thing in general, but I also understand how people could be driven to it.
Yeah.
I just think it's not a lifestyle that women are driven to the same way men are driven to it. It's sort of like, it's sort of like the serial killer industry.
Yeah.
It's like there are so few women getting into that job.
That's
but
really
men,
funny.
hey, yeah, we
They
got
love
cornered.
it.
They love it. Take it enough.
That's a really good point. It's something
my basement is full and I can't stop.
I've always wondered, why there's this, that it feels like, because it does, I think that there's been so much headway made in the kind of idea that this is like a boys club, but I do think some industries are just naturally geared towards, and this is what I was talking to my girlfriends when I was home about, that she is now trying to be into like holistics, and the more she learns about body biorhythms and stuff, she's like, this industry is so fucked up, like it's so bad for you, especially as a woman. We shouldn't be out this late. We shouldn't be, just like talking about how hormonally it messes you up. And I just always remember when I was really grinding, just like those nights where I'd have cramps or I'd be like starting my period, and I'm like, I feel emotional and I want to be in bed curled up in a blanket watching a rom-com, and I've got to go, put myself in front of strangers and have them judge me. It was just like, what am I doing? I'm a crazy person. This is a crazy thing to do. It's crazy when you feel great. Not to mention when you feel like women feel once a month often. It was just so
there's probably a lot of reasons. I just think that I look at a lot of the women that that I've known who've really succeeded in stand up. Maybe they're not as geared towards like being a mother, or it's not in their like DNA. It's okay. I mean, my friends have kids and I don't have kids, and I don't really have that need, and so it's there's probably a lot of reasons that are a lot deeper, but I just think it's also really not the most healthiest industry to get into. I think if you're a woman and you're funny, getting into writing is so much better, because it's a regular gig. I'm showing up like I am at work, and I get to make jokes and be have things be funny.
Yeah, there's an element of it too that's far more dangerous. Just being out late at night. There were times where I was leaving shows and I definitely didn't feel safe in the neighborhood wherever the show was, walking to my car alone, and just it's one of the few times if I'm promoting a show that I actually locate myself in real time, which always sketched me out, especially because now I have like, I'm not famous by any means, but I have a it's like enough of a profile to be unsettled and not sure who's watching all the time. So, and who might hate me or, whatever. Yeah. It's just very.
You're at a nightclub. Cobb's in the Cannery was a notorious area here, and Greg Proops got mugged one time and really beaten up pretty badly. So it's, you're still in a big city, and it's still scary no matter what you are. And look, all these things, go into the equation of, do I want to keep doing this?
Yeah.
And especially if you're doing open mics, those are usually even in the more shadier parts of town.
Yeah.
So, unless you're going in a bus, with a bunch of comics, you're not gonna feel safe.
Yeah.
Going to some of those places.
I've had female comedians call me and going like, what am I doing? I'm doing mics with homeless people, and I don't know what to tell them. I'm just, because I understand that love for it and that desire to be on stage. And even just last night, these guys who are, one of them is a comedian, one of them was and isn't so much anymore. And they were asking me why I was wanting to get back at it. And I'm like, I miss it. I miss it. And it's so different because I'm still telling jokes and doing kind of a satirical news show on YouTube, but I don't have the feedback. Like that tangible feedback from the audience is so invaluable to me as somebody who's trying to take the pulse of America or wherever I happen to be. I happen to be in America. And it's terrifying, but it's also enlightening.
Yeah, I have the same thing when I started getting into voiceover and I took classes. I would be so much more animated when in a classroom doing voiceover than I am at home. And I had to figure out, how do I trick myself into believing I'm in front of an audience, and you have that instant reaction that makes you click and makes your adrenaline roll, and you're getting a response, because even though you're in a booth, you can still hear the audience, not the audience, your other classmates.
Yeah, it's an audience.
In terms of them, an audience. It is an audience. Yeah, and then you hear their laughter, and then makes you want to be funnier. And so, but for me, it's like, dude, at least with voiceover, because I actually started out being an actor in Florida and doing a lot of theater. I at least I feel like I'm still being super creative,
Right.
and I'm being, and I love, and it's also avoids the thing I don't like the most, which is actually seeing the person who's rejecting you.
Right.
That was the thing. That was the thing I hated about doing theater, was like you go on a stage, you're auditioning for the one guy who's going to give you the job, and you walk out on stage and he's like, no, that's not what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And you can I at least say some words before you you don't have the part already, and you haven't said a damn thing. You just walk on stage.
Yeah.
So at least I don't have that. I do my audition, send it out, and forget about it. And I just enjoy the process.
Yeah.
Being creative, making creative decisions.
Gold has soared past $2,000 an ounce, guys. Wars in Israel and Ukraine and rate cuts on the table are fueling gold's meteoric rise. There's a direct correlation to the national debt and price of gold. In 2020, the U.S. debt was $23 trillion and gold was $1,500 an ounce. In 2023, the debt is $33 trillion, numbers you cannot even get your mind around, and gold is over $2,000 an ounce. Donald Trump warned the U.S. dollar no longer being the world standard will be our greatest defeat in 200 years. Call the proud Americans of the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Mention Bridget Phetasy, and you'll always get best-in-class service from Patriots protecting Patriots. Patriot Gold Group has a no-fee-for-life IRA where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the no-fee-for-life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Call 888-614-9238 for a free investor guide today. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs top-rated gold IRA dealer 7 years in a row. Call 888-614-9238. Mention Bridget Phetasy. Customers are rushing to your store. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. Shopify POS is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone. Transform your tablet into a point-of-sale system. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Do retail right with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/WIW, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/WIW to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/WIW. Do you still keep up with the comedy scene? Are you still following young comics and whatnot, or are you completely out of? How long have you been out of it?
Well, 10 years.
Okay.
10 years. But yes and no. I mean, the thing is, it's really hard for me to enjoy stand-up.
Yeah. It's like being a waitress and going to the restaurants.
Yeah. I look at comedy shows and comedians, who especially I haven't seen before, and somebody will go, "Oh, hey, you got to watch this comedy special on HBO," and I'm watching it with a critical eye for the first 10 or 15 minutes because that's what my job was, looking at everything through a critical eye. And it's only when I completely trust that you're funny, and I trust who you are, and I trust, that I'm digging you, that I let that part go. And I generally like still seeing comics that I really liked before, that I thought were funny. I still like seeing them live. I like seeing Bill Burr live, or Brian Regan live, or Sarah Silverman, or Paula Poundstone. I still enjoy seeing them live because I can relax. I don't have to. My critical brain is in the car. I don't have to think about are they going to be good or bad? 'Cause I'm I trust them implicitly in their sense of humor. So,
what does the critical brain look for
in a stand-up?
Yeah, when you're saying, in that 10 minutes.
first couple minutes, I look at mic technique. I mean, I basically, I got to the point where somebody would send me a DVD or, VHS tape in the early days. And, within a couple minutes, well, within the first minute, I could see if they were a professional or not. It's how your mic technique and all those little, how you start a show, if you're meandering around and, it always tells me that like, you're really not, sure of yourself and you don't want to get into the material right away.
Yeah.
Cause it's sort of like, here comes the pain for me. If they don't know who I am yet, they're not judging me yet. But I am. So, cause you've only got so much time to get my attention.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're sending out, something to, anything to anybody, you should always come out of the gate, treat it like a Tonight Show set.
Right.
If you're sending out tape or streaming or whatever you're doing to club bookers, treat it like this is your Tonight Show set, how you're going to come out to that audience. You got to get their attention the first minute. You do your bit that defines you in your first, 35, 40 seconds, and then you get their attention and then you can, play a little bit more. You can, as long as you have their faith right in the beginning and their trust, they'll go with you.
Yeah.
Because the audience wants you to succeed.
Yeah,
they're
do.
there to laugh. They're not there to like going, who's this asshole?
Or uncomfortably squirm for 10 minutes or whatever.
They're at a comedy club. I mean, it's different if you're at an open mic and it's guitar players and, a magician and it's, or you, some band that knows who you are. They go, hey, I want to put on my comedian friend, before we start the show, give him a hand, then you're screwed. But, they're not expecting. But if it's a comedy club, even if it's an open mic or a showcase, they want you to succeed.
Yeah.
They're rooting for you.
Yeah.
Just remember that.
Yeah.
And just go and give them a reason to root for you in the first 30, 40 seconds. Don't wait. Just come out of the box. Don't meander. Don't fumble with the microphone. It makes you look like a professional. If you're a guy that leaves the microphone in the stand, leave the microphones in the stand. If you're somebody who doesn't like the microphone stand, get rid of it right away. Do everything quickly in the beginning. You don't have the trust in the beginning of your career. The audience isn't there to see you generally. They are there to see a comedian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give them a comedian as quickly as possible.
It's funny. I've seen so many like debates too about mic technique and how you hold the mic, and everybody seems to kind of have a different way that they hold the mic that's comfortable for them. And
it should be with what's comfortable for you too. It should be where you're not making a bunch of microphone noise with the microphone. That drives me out of my mind. People who pound the microphone, constantly pounding the microphone stand. Don't do that. Don't rattle it around. Remember, it all makes noise. It's all amplified, and it's irritating after a while when you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, this is my style. No, it's a stupid style. Nobody does it. It's sort of like I'm a golfer. So it's like when somebody putts a weird way and they go, well, I always have trouble with putting. Why is that? Because you're doing something that no pro does. If the pros aren't doing it like that, don't do it like that.
Right.
It's the same thing. If you're not seeing somebody that's rattling the microphone around and taking it off, put it back in, taking it off, put it back in. If they're not doing that, don't do it.
Yeah.
Do not do it because they're showing you it doesn't work because they don't do it. So that's what I'd say. You're the first minute you're on stage, regardless of whether you're trying to get work or you're trying to get an audience to like you, is the absolute most important. Don't fuck with that. Don't screw that up. Make sure that you come out of the stage confident, and looking like you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not sure of yourself, they sense it.
Yeah.
They know it. It's like, they're a shark, and there's blood in the water.
Yeah. They can sense fear. We're animals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we can sense it.
Fear's no fun. You don't want to see some guy on stage who's scared.
No.
You want to see somebody, you want to see some person on stage that's confident. They own it. It's my stage. That last person, they don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
I'm here. It's my stage.
I love that. Yeah. It's so hard. I mean, it's funny because I always had to get over like debilitating stage fright. And once I was on stage, it was totally fine. It was like it didn't exist, but the anticipation would absolutely kill me. It was one of those things that I just And I got sober too. I got part of the reason I got sober was I realized comedy and drinking could not exist in the same space at the same time. And then I got sober and was like, oh, I have stage fright. I didn't even know it.
Oh, that was the medication
That
for
was
stage
liquid
fright.
courage. But it was a horrific bomb that I had where I was waiting, I was nervous, and I kept on drinking, and I got on stage so drunk and I bombed so bad. I don't think I got back on stage for weeks after that bomb. It was horrific. And I stood up on that stage and said, I'm cold and afraid. It was like, and then blacked out. It was just so bad.
Yeah. I've gone through that with some comics where, I've done that thing where, that's, you always have to deal with, substance abuse one way or the other.
Yeah.
And some people, Joe Rogan, go on stage stoned, with the intake of marijuana that would kill me. I would be in the corner in a fetal position, but he is like, dude, I don't know how you're doing this, but hey, as long as you do it, that's fine.
And he's
but
just like,
drinking
brilliant.
Drinking is a weirder thing. I've seen too many comics, get to that point where it's like they're, some people are sending them shots, and those guys, I would just stop booking after a while, just because you're on a bad road, and I don't want to be there when you crash and burn, giving people back their money, because you just passed out on stage and threw up on the front row, so
like dry cleaning isn't cheap.
Yeah. I was gonna do about this suit. Why are you wearing a suit to comedy club? So I've had those conversations, and actually, there's a couple of comics who through the years who have given me chips the sobriety, because I basically ultimated them into sobriety.
Wow.
Or at least I I have like 5 chips from different comics who have
wow.
So
what do you think about the state of comedy right now?
I think look, comedy is it's there are ebbs and flows as far as popularity is concerned, but I think the state of comedy right now is just on fire.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
It's really on fire, and it goes up and down. But the nice thing about this is I think it's very sustainable in the sense that it's not on fire because it's on, there's a, it's being overexposed on television. It's on fire because people just need to laugh.
Right.
I think they just need to laugh, and they realize that, comedy clubs are a good place for healing. Laughter is good medicine, is actually really good medicine. And it's not the best medicine, but it's good medicine.
Yeah.
And I think that it's getting healthier in the sense that it's not, I know people fucking go off on the woke thing. And I think it's kind of a sad excuse for some older comics who want to trash, wokeness and stuff like that. But I actually think that having, the awareness of, people's feelings and it gives you an upper hand. And I also think change is good. I think staying still is bad. I think there hasn't been a comic that has had a long career that has stayed still. He's not. If you're the same you're the same person you were 10 years ago, you're doing something really, really wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So you should treat comedy like you would treat your life. If you're, you have to evolve.
Yeah.
If society's putting up a line in the sand, then your job is to figure out a way to get to that line without crossing it. That's the challenge of comedy. To me, it's just another challenge. If you're not up for the challenge, old man, get out of the way and let the young guys, because they'll figure it out. They have figured it out. A number of them have.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're over there going, oh, woke people are giving me a hard time, they're trying to cancel me, boo-hoo, it's pathetic. Bill Maher is really sad and pathetic right now.
Is he?
Yeah, he's just. I really liked the guy for a long time, but I think he's like, Republicans like me better than liberals because they're always with the woke stuff, and it's because, dude, you're still in your mentality is still in 1985. You're still saying chicks and broads, and you're you just have all this misogynistic talk, and it's really kind of sad to me. It's really like it's basically announcing I'm an old man. Where George Carlin was like a pioneer. He was a pioneer until he died. I mean, this guy was always coming up with amazing material that was just thoughtful and risky and it made you think. And I love comedy that makes me think. I
Yeah.
love whether I disagree or agree with where they are, it's still I like using this part of my brain, you know, the whole thing when I go to a show, when I go to anything, I like having my brain involved.
Yeah,
I don't like.
it seems like Carlin, I watched that documentary. My husband and I were like, let's watch this documentary on Carlin. And it was dark. It like ended in a way that I was like, oh, I actually feel like this was really sad and dark. He seemed actually very nihilistic towards the end. I don't, and if that's kind of the troubling thing to me about like thinking comedy. He was brilliant and thoughtful, but it seemed like it really took a toll on his perception of the world.
Yeah, I try to not go there because the more I look at where we are, I think we're all so hopeful in our 20s and 30s, and then we believe that we have that we can change the world, and then you realize it's getting worse. It's getting worse and worse, and people are just hating each other more and more, and we got a war. We're at war here, where people are being killed here, and people are hating people for no reason, and misinformation and all this stuff. And it's like it's really hard sometimes, especially when you're older, not realizing, okay, this is how human beings are. We're not going to change. This is what George Carlin was complaining about 20 years ago, and we haven't really moved the needle. I keep hoping every generation changes, something evolves in it, but we do what we can do. And I think that's one of the nice things about stand-up is it gives people a break from hating on each other.
Yeah. I'm no massively huge fan of Marr, although just because he's always I've been watching him since I was a probably young adult, teenager, maybe even. And he's just always struck me as very smug, which for some people, they seem to like it. But for me, it's always come across as just
arrogant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some people love that.
Arrogant and smug. And I think, I don't think, sadly, I don't think Bill will ever be thought of as a great comedian. I think he's really good at his job on the show to a point, but he's also one of those people that I think is a bit lazy in the sense where here's a guy who's doing a political show, and I'm a novice politically, but I see stuff that goes right by him that is flat out wrong, and he doesn't push back on it, maybe because he doesn't know what it is. But that's his gig. That's your job, dude. Your job is to know what it is, especially when you're bringing somebody on your show. It's good to know all their positions so you can push back on their BS. But I just feel like Bill likes his pot and likes his his drink, and that's who he is. There's a reason to me why Bill Maher's never had a real partner, romantically in his life. I think there's no room for him and himself.
I don't think he wants one, though. I feel like he's been pretty open about that. It seems like, he lives his single life, and it's just like,
well, he's not built for having a relationship. He's just not. I just think, and I also think if you're not built for having a relationship, I think it's hard to say I'm really good at friendships, but I'm not really good at relationships. Well, to me, they're like, my wife is my best friend.
Mhm.
I don't have no better friend than my wife. And I have a lot of really good friends.
Yeah.
So I think to myself personally, it doesn't mean I don't think everybody needs to be in a relationship, but I think there's something kind of off if somebody doesn't have relationships, because we need relationships to function
Well,
in
they
our
also
society.
show you your blind spots. I mean, I had a long time ago, a therapist tell me, if you want to see where your blind spots are, get in a relationship. And they heal. They're very healing if they're good and
Yeah.
healthy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also divorced, and actually my ex and I are really good friends now, but I learned a lot from that, mainly like what not to do,
Yeah.
all the things I did wrong, and I had a really good therapist when I was, doing therapy, and I started bitching about my ex. He would go, well, she's not here to defend herself. So if you want to keep doing this, I said, just save your money, go to a bar, talk to your buddies.
That's amazing advice.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
amazing advice. Take this money to the bar and go talk to your buddies.
Yeah.
That's really funny. I always ask the same two questions at the end of my podcast. What is your biggest defective character?
My personal defective character?
Yeah.
Well, I would say that currently it's that I finally realized that I'm kind of I've kind of had trouble at night, because for 30 years I've been around like hundreds of people,
Right.
and I've gone from being around hundreds of people to being around nobody. My wife goes to bed early.
Yeah.
I'm there alone. And it was like, I was wondering why, why I would drink too much at night sometimes,
Yep.
and why I would eat too much at night. And it was all medicating because I was
Lonely.
stuck.
Oh,
with me.
interesting. Yeah.
And I didn't have all those distractions, all those, parties I would throw and all these things. I'm a very social animal. So, I didn't choose this career by accident. It chose me in a way. So yeah, dealing with and finally coming to that realization that, I like being around people,
Yeah. Were you lonely? Was that what it was?
Yeah. Super lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was always looking for somebody to chat with, online and stuff. And then, just people don't have lifestyles like I used to. So they're not up at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night. And, like I am, but now I've kind of accepted it. I really kind of curbed, I'm not drinking at night anymore. And I'm basically finding myself going to bed when I'm tired. I'm starting to go to bed a little earlier, get up a little earlier. So, understanding that, where your ship's heading towards an iceberg, and steering away from it. That's what I've been trying to do with that.
Well, your like biorhythms get so messed up from 30 years in that industry. I don't know a single comedian that can't go to bed before 2 o'clock in the morning. It's like that's when they start to get tired and wind down.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had to curb that because it was driving me mad.
Yeah.
Because it was just nothing to do, and I don't want to go to a bar, and I don't want to, and I don't want to, I just don't
scroll. I've been doom scrolling. Till like I can't. I have a hard time sleeping. You can always reach out to me when you're up, because I will 100% be up. It's my husband is like, go to bed. What's wrong? I'm like, it's just the brain and the whole lifestyle and all of it. And then I get online and it's like, forget it. Now I'm down some rabbit hole of doom, and it's not good.
Yeah, I literally have to go to sleep with the TV on most of the time because it shuts. Because if I just go to bed, then I'm like this for about 5 minutes, and then my eyes go like
Yeah.
that because
I'm the
my
same
brain came up with something.
way.
Yeah, and my brain came up with something, and I'm going, motherfucker. Because it won't shut off.
Yeah.
But if I'm watching something stupid on TV, which is why YouTube's so great, because it's like YouTube's like the perfect drug for somebody like me, because I'm just like, it's on until it punishes me until my brain just checks out.
I get that.
So
Were you like
yeah.
that as a kid? Did you have to fall asleep with the TV on as a kid?
I had to fall asleep to music.
Mm.
I would it was the great thing about 8-tracks. I had an 8-track player when I was a kid, and I literally would put in like Moody Blues, Seven Surgeons was my go-to sleep album. So I'd put it in and take it out White Hut in the morning because it had been playing for 8 hours.
Yep.
And so I always had like music on in the background, something I could focus on, and then that would eventually I would fall asleep to that. But if I don't have anything to focus on, my brain is like a fish.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
So, that happened to me last night. We got back from like our first real kind of date night out since we had our daughter. He was tired. He went to bed. We turned off the lights and my brain was like, ding. And I was up until 3 o'clock in the morning or something, or 4. It was ridiculous. And yeah, I don't know. The blue light doesn't help. The screens don't help. But I was one of those kids that would sleep on the couch, and I always had to fall asleep in front of the TV. I've always,
that's what I do.
Since I was a kid,
in front of the couch a lot of time.
Yeah,
we got one of those moon pods now that I can fall asleep on. So it's yeah.
What's your biggest asset?
I think my biggest asset is I have a big heart, and I do honestly care about people and stuff, and I try to be there for my friends, and people I love. That's my I'm not like a big family person. I don't kind of believe that, but I'm a big friend person. All my friends are people, that I've chosen, and I would give them, whatever they needed to help them. I would do whatever I could for them. So I would say that is probably, I generally the people that I love, unconditionally.
Where can we find you? Are you on social media?
Not a lot,
really.
but you go to my website, TomSawyerVoices.com, which is I worked really hard making it a super cool website to go to. It's got a lot of my demos and this voice work I've done. It's also got a link to the Comedy Club movie on Tubi, and it's also on Prime and Plex, and it's got tons and tons and tons of photos from Cobb's.
So cool.
All of the comics that have played there and all the parties that were thrown there. I opened the floodgates to invite people to send me their photos from parties at Cobb's and photos that were taken there. So there's so much history on that site that I think for fans and for comedians, I think it's a fun place to go because there's so many cool photos. Dan Dion, who's an amazing photographer, has a book out, donated a bunch of photos that were all taken at Cobb's. And same thing, our house photographer in the 80s, Hank London, he donated a bunch of photos to it.
Amazing.
It's, so many great comics, many great comics.
Wow, this has been so fun getting to know you and hearing your perspective and wisdom on all of these things. And I'm just grateful to have been able to sit down and talk to you. I hope we stay in touch.
Yeah, I hope so too.
And voice work is great. Yeah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Well, that's the thing is I actually, when I was doing stand-up, I did do a lot of impersonations on stage. So that's kind of what I took into my voiceover, so.
That's the best. I mean, my husband and I talk about this all the time because he's asked me what's the best gig in Hollywood. And I'm like, voice work.
Yeah, because you can do it at home.
It's the best gig and it's well paying still. It's still decent.
And all I have to do is come up with, crazy voices and, I like to do that. It's a lot of fun for me. Just crazy stuff and taking impersonations and tweaking them a little bit. And it's just a blast. And again, you can go to TomSawyerVoices.com. You can hear a lot of the stuff I've done. And a lot of people say the same thing. Are those all your voice?
Yeah.
Is that all you? Yeah. Because that's what is like so rewarding to me when people do that. Yeah, they're all me.
Yeah, that's crazy. One of my good friends' husband is kind of one of the big voiceover guys in Hollywood, and his reel is insane. It is crazy. How are you all of these people? It's truly a gift and an art and a talent to be able to control and manipulate your voice like that.
I love it. I love doing it. So, I'm going to keep doing it until, eventually, I'll end up, being the guy who's just doing wizards and grandpas, but
that's all right.
I don't really care. That's all right. I'll just keep doing wizards and grandpas.
It's a great place to end up, Tom. Thank you.
I'm Walter Masterson.
And I'm Maximilian Clark.
And we're basically journalists.
No, we're not.
Well, we do travel across America and interview people.
Yeah, using God to solve murders, and it's proven communication.
Tell me everything about that.
But we also dress up like extremists and sneak into their protests.
I care about children. That is why I pay my court-mandated child support. Well, that's undercover journalism.
Okay, and that time we pretended to be Trump's legal team during the indictment?
Trump loves America. He considers us all family. That's why he's always asking us for money. Okay, so we are not journalists. We're TikTok comedians asking questions real journalists are too smart to ask.
But we also talk to real experts and scientists and smart people and stuff.
And make fun of them.
Yeah, I guess that's why we named our show We Are Not Journalists.
Because we're better. We have a podcast.
A podcast that's available on whatever podcast app you use to get your podcasts.
Podcasts.
Hold on to your jingle bells. Pluto TV has all your holiday favorites for free. Enjoy our season's greetings category with 9 holiday channels, including holiday movie favorites by Lifetime, Festive Fireplace, Holiday Lights, and Hallmark movies and more. Download the Pluto TV app on all your favorite devices and start streaming holiday favorites on live channels and on demand. With thousands of free movies and TV shows, Pluto TV is your home for the holidays. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
It's time for the weekly check-in with Bridget and cousin Maggie.
Last check-in of the year.
What are you proud of this year, Maggie?
Oh, I was thinking about that when I was listening to you guys do factory settings.
You're like, no.
I struggled with that question. I really did. I was like, am I proud of myself at all?
You moved. That's
I know.
Big.
That's
you
really the
just
big.
Stayed in your comfort zone.
The big thing is I moved and did, in fact, change my life.
Yeah, that's huge.
I think that's a really big deal. So
you
I think
easily could have just been like, no, I'm going to stay here.
I'm going to stay.
In this lovely California.
It was time to go.
Yeah.
It was time to move, make a change. To a new place.
I think it's obviously a hard situation. It's funny. I just got an email from someone who was on the podcast and I was asking them, how they were doing. And they're like, my business was decimated because of the strike. It's been such a tough year. And I don't think it's just like our business that suffered this year.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone, when you talk to people, maybe not everybody, but most people have taken a hit financially.
Yeah.
Many people, even individuals with normal jobs, they're
because prices went up on everything.
Yeah.
And I know it hasn't been an easy year for any of us, but I'm like really hopeful for 2024, just in terms of our energy, like what our plans are, what we want to get done, like what our focus is, all of that stuff. I really feel like it'll be a great building year.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of kind of enthusiasm for that and kind of what we have on deck and what I see us hopefully being able to do. Yeah. Really just to up our game and grow and move forward, hopefully. hopefully figure some more of this stuff out. It's such a learning curve, and it's building, and just the two of us trying to figure it out.
There's a reason.
But I think that's all small businesses to some extent. I've been involved in several of them now.
Yeah.
And you see that everywhere. It's people trying to figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, and it's such a, particularly we joke, on Substack, we have a branding problem.
That's literally on our landing page right now.
That's like our motto now, because it's always been tricky to define exactly what it is we're giving people, because I have so many projects, but it's also the very nature of the word I made up is challenging to define.
The definition of undefinable.
Yeah. So that's always been tricky, on top of I look at the finances, and knowing how much money I said no to this year is always, it's not challenging. It's just, I have to remember that I've put maintaining our independence before anything, and that will always come at a cost.
Yeah. And
it will just always, there's always it's trade-offs.
And there's something to be said for even being offered that money,
Yeah.
But I agree, and I don't regret those choices either. I think overall for us, they were absolutely the right decisions to be made.
And it is a balance of, there were also other opportunities that I said no to, just different opportunities that I could have capitalized on that probably would have given me a hit of notoriety or
juice or something. Yeah.
But it's not, I don't know. I think, again, balancing longevity in this industry with also trying, like, virality.
Right.
I'm often making that trade-off. There are definitely moments where I've said, well, this will give me a viral moment, or it will be something that will kind of put me on the map for a minute, or make me the person of the day on the internet, or whatever, the primary character, whatever they call it, the main character on Twitter, which is my nightmare. And there are people who are built for that, like, Candace and Barry, and people who are, they're just like built for that. Mm-hmm. That's not what I want. I enjoy being feisty. Mm-hmm. Like, dumpster fire's fun. There is a part of me that enjoys making people mad, because it's so absurd and kind of funny. But for the most part, I just really want to laugh at myself and the world, and make other people laugh, and also make other people feel strong.
Right.
When I do look back at, like, the old Phetasy stuff, and we were watching, it's been so weird. We've been watching the recent series of The Crown. Mm. And it has, like, triggered so much weird stuff in me, because she died like almost exactly a month after I was date raped.
Oh.
And it was such a weird, sad time in my life. But I was thinking about how it's just brought up, like, a lot of that time in general has brought up so much weird stuff. And her life is just so tragic and sad. And that portrayal is weird, because I'm like, was this the truth?
Uh-huh.
Was it true that, like, they weren't, was I just sold some bill of goods by, like, Dodie's father, that they were in love and they actually weren't, and she was, like, trying to get out? I mean, it's a weird way of portraying it. Mm. So I don't even know if it's the real story or what, but I was thinking about just, like, how young I was, and then just how much things went off the rails after that, and how I was in rehab, like, a year later. It's stuff I talk about and just kind of brush over. But as a mother of a daughter now, I'm like, I was so young to have gone through that, and to have kind of seen myself out, and then all the shit that followed that we never even talk about. It's like,
you were so young.
And then started the company, and then took it on tour. And I mean, and having like my ex-husband die recently has brought up just so many memories of that time. It is actually insane because I was realizing, I was looking at the greeting cards that we still have, and they're almost, the copyright's 2005. I'm like, these things are almost 20 years old.
I know.
20 years, which on one hand makes me feel like a loser, but on the other, I'm like, this shit should not exist.
No, it should have died 20 years ago.
Died 20 years ago. It should have died 15 years ago. It should have died 10 years ago. It should have died many times.
I know we had a night where we were going through like kind of nostalgia boxes, looking at old notebooks, trying to brainstorm about our like tagline, our log line for Phetasy, the company.
And all we came up with was we have a branding problem.
Yeah,
so
because it's such a difficult needle to thread of being like, we want to make you laugh while the world burns, but also uplift and help people feel connected and not alone. So that's a really hard like co-message to weave together. We were joking that if anyone could give us the perfect line, we'd give them a lifetime membership to Phetasy.
Yes, if you can come up with the perfect, 1 or 2 line, ideally 1, but 2 line sentence of it for our Substack or for our company, just the 1 line that describes what we do. Our listeners know better than we do.
Right. I mean, we had like uplifting, apocalyptic, absurdity, absurdity is a good word, but trying to weave in kind of the making fun of it all and also helping people feel less alone and helping them get out of their own way. Like that's a really
apocalyptic, aspirational absurdity.
You might have just nailed it.
People will be like, I don't know what this is, but I'll click on it.
Well, it's funny too, because ever since we have a branding problem went up, our numbers have still been going up. We're like, maybe we've hit on it.
Maybe this is the message that really resonates with people, is we have a branding problem.
Right. Well, you signed up for someone else's Substack and that was like in the notifications. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to put pictures of this stuff in the Substack and fam. Yeah. Yeah. It's been funny. Apocalyptic, aspirational absurdity.
I like that.
Or aspirational, apocalyptic absurdity.
I like starting with apocalyptic and then going to aspirational.
Because it is that weird balance of, if you zoom out, the world looks chaotic, but then I think about how it was always burning.
Yeah.
It is balancing that, and yet I'm sitting in an air-conditioned house with running water.
Right.
So there's the sense of the doom, and also I want people to, I always have like words that kind of ring at the end of the year, and they're kind of the bells I ding for the following year. And one of those words is competent. I just want to become competent in like my, being able to
life and running
start
a
garden
and
and be, but competent in the real world, not competent online. I don't.
Well, for me, it's like
a balance,
like running a business, like those things you have to do, the not just like being online, but like actual business running.
Yeah. I love the fact that I can make bread. That was just a big, and I wonder if that wasn't, I'm still obsessed with this idea of why everyone started baking bread during the pandemic. And I still have yet to read a good piece about why this happened and if it's just something that was triggered. But I also think it was this thing you could do that was tangible that made you feel competent in the face of realizing how utterly incompetent we really all are.
And how out of control, like how out of our control many things are.
But that's just baking too. I mean, bread is so ridiculous when you're trying to learn it. There's so many factors that you don't have control over.
Right. Well, and going back to what you were saying before about like the the zoom out view being chaotic, but sitting in the house, but also like the ultra zoom out view is, we're on a rock spinning in space here for the blink of an eye and none of this matters. Like that's always kind of been a hardcore Phetasy ground rule.
Yeah. None of this matters, but all of it does.
Yeah. And trying to make the most of your life.
I know. Reading about having a child who's obsessed with the universe, I regret my jingle that I made up for her being, I always call her an astral traveler and made up a song for her. And now she's obsessed with planets and the universe and the stars. And so we've been learning more and more about it. And you're like, oh my, first of all, how does any of this work?
Yeah.
Like even gravity, how we just take it for granted that there's even gravity on this planet. And it's like it's like Jupiter is basically like the bouncer for our whole entire planet system. They just its gravity is so huge it absorbs most of the asteroids that would generally collide into our planet. It is I don't understand how Earth is such a miracle, and it really is a miracle.
Yeah.
And it actually makes me believe maybe more and more this is a simulation, because I don't understand how we're the only life that exists anywhere for thousands of millions of light years around us,
like that we know of. Yeah,
it is banana.
It is,
and you go down that rabbit hole, and it's such a good. It's a perspective where you're like, just do it, just take risks, do whatever. Like, do not wait. Don't be afraid. Put yourself out there. Who cares? This is all so fleeting. You're here for and you don't even know when it could be your last day. It's just, it is wild. It really has grounded me, but I've spent a lot less time on Twitter. Even one of the fam members who I DM with on there quite a bit, we were chatting today, and he was like, even for you've barely been here. But I'm like, it doesn't, as my nephew said when he was a child, it just doesn't make my heart glow.
Yeah.
It used to be fun.
Yeah.
It's not fun anymore. It used to be, it's just different. It's taken on edgelording is funny, but it's also kind of sad.
Yeah. That was always one of my favorite expressions that a child came up with. We've used it forever since he said it. Just doesn't make my heart glow.
About his homework. It just doesn't make my heart glow, D. I'm like, yeah, I get it. But that's how I feel about Twitter. I'm again, looking at how fleeting all of this is. Is this how I want to be spending the precious few minutes that I have in this experience? Not really. I like making stuff. I like making stuff with my hands. I like making stuff with my mind. I like being physical while I can. Again, having elder parents who are kind of getting to the point where they're having a harder time doing things. You're like, I take it for granted that I can walk easily.
Yeah,
and
it's fleeting.
Yeah. I just want to make it count. Make it count. Make it count, guys.
That's a line from Titanic.
Is it?
Yes. To making it count.
Oh, no. Well, that's full circle to the apocalypse, I guess.
All right.
So we thank you for your listening and your love and support and your eyeballs and earballs.
We hope you have lovely and calm, restful holidays that you can just take some time to enjoy with family, friends, whoever.
Or alone.
Yeah. Bridget has
loved my alone
her
time.
Favorite holidays in the world are those she's spent alone.
They're great. Yeah. However you want this to be, I hope it is for you. Whatever your ideal experience for these couple of weeks where hopefully you get to get some recuperation in before what is undoubtedly going to be a year where everyone loses their mind. Listen, here at Phetasy Inc. and Walk-Ins Welcome in particular, and Factory Settings and Dumpster Fire, our primary concern is staying somewhat grounded in absurdity and laughter and strength and sanity, you know, as much as we can. Everyone's going to lose their minds.
Yeah.
Just try not to go crazy in 2024.
Touch grass.
Something. It's going to be, it's always painful watching people lose their minds.
It really is.
It's funny too, because there's so much backlash right now to like the stuff that we've been pushing back against, like the Harvard and the DEI and all the kind of ridiculous, regressive things that have taken hold ideologically, and people are like, there's real pushback coming. I'm like, yeah, until Trump gets the nomination, and then we'll be back to like everything is even worse than it. You thought it was bad in 2016 and 2020.
Oh,
and
Lord.
now we have to go through this again. I said it. I said we should have just let him win in 2020. No one listens to me.
No one listens. On that note, Happy New Year! Welcome to 2024.
Welcome to 2024.
We'll be here for you.
We'll be here for you. Hopefully. I mean, we're assuming. Tune in next week for another riveting episode that will change your life, help you get out of your own way, and solve all the world's problems. I want to thank our composer, Jared Elias, my co-producer and cousin, Maggie, and all of you out there listening. This has been Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. I'm Bridget Phetasy, and you're welcome. It's the dumbest line.